नहीं आते, जितने मरे हैं लोग वो मारे नहीं जाते। अच्छी सी कोई योजना हम रच सकते थे, मिलजुल सलाह करते तो शायद बच सकते थे। हम ये नहीं कहते कि महामारी नहीं थी, हम ये बता रहे हैं कि तैयारी नहीं थी। In a country where, according to most estimates, nearly 90% of the workforce is employed in the informal economy, where 38 crore Indians out of 47 crore who make up our totally employed workforce are predominantly in jobs that offer a daily wage, surely this government should have had the foresight to understand the implications of the shock and awe style of governance on the livelihoods of its own citizens. Depending on which set of sources you refer to, the numbers that quantify the scale of the migrant workers' crisis vary. In June, the Chief Labour Commissioner estimated that over 26 lakh migrant workers were stranded in various parts of the country, while others estimate a reverse migration of up to 3 crore workers since mid-March. The image of tens of thousands of our fellow citizens setting off on foot to make it back to their hometowns has been seared into the collective consciousness of our nation. If as little as a direct assurance to such marginalized groups, a clear promise of support followed through with policies to ensure that no worker would go hungry or would lose access to basic income or healthcare, if such had been given, much of the crisis that followed could have been averted. If this sudden announcement and the distress the government caused to our people was to arrest the spread of the virus, then I'm sorry to say the approach was utterly misguided and has completely failed. As highlighted in a letter addressed to the PM that was signed by distinguished medical experts of several national associations, and I quote, "Had the migrant persons been allowed to go home at the beginning of the epidemic when the disease spread was very low, the current situation could have been avoided. The returning migrants are now taking infection to each and every corner of the country, mostly to rural and peri-urban areas in districts with relatively weak public health systems." In other words, the third significant failure of this government is that not only did their high-handedness result in widespread pain for our people, but their role in fomenting such an exceptional displacement of migrant workers actively undermined any gains that were initially envisioned from a national lockdown. As the virus continued to spread, the countermeasures of a lockdown persisted, and this has inevitably laid low our already fragile economy. This is not a debate on the economy, Mr. Speaker, but the fact is that shutting down every productive activity in the name of flattening the curve meant only that, in the words of Rajiv Bajaj, we flattened the wrong curve. COVID rose, but our economy collapsed. All our main indicators are in the red, with no end in sight, causing sleepless nights for most Indians. We've already seen the 23.9% contraction in Q1 GDP, compared to 9.1 in US, 9.7 in Brazil. Most experts have suggested an overall contraction of 10 to 11% is likely to take place in this financial year. Far more worrying is the impact the pandemic has had on the workplace. We, in this House, have seen how many MPs have now been infected, new cases coming in every day. Let us face it, at least we have a job thanks to our voters. We're suffering already record levels of unemployment under this government's watch ahead of the arrival of the virus, but estimates suggest that the situation has